Hi everyone, welcome back. I've seen other videos on YouTube of people doing these book hauls, and if it's what I think it is, it's basically featuring a book that you have yet to read. And but I'm not exactly sure, so I could be doing this wrong. So if I am, just let me know right down there in the comments on what a proper book haul is, and I'll try to schedule one in the future. Okay, so these are the books I have yet to read. I have loads more behind me, but those I'm not exactly in a rush to get to. These I'm more anxious to read. So I'm going to feature these, say why I wanted to read them and things like that, and what I think they might be about. So before I get to that, I want to mention that the order these books are in is the order that I'm going to read them in. They're completely randomized, they're not in any order of any kind, but I still want them to remain in this same exact order. It's a long story, I know, but it's just what I want, to do. Seating Arrangements by Maggie Shipstead. I wanted to read this because it centers around a wedding, and I just love weddings. It's about a family, a rich family, in a place called Waskiki, and I'm not exactly sure where that is. I researched it, and I'm not exactly sure, unless it might be a fictional place. I'm not so sure. And there's multiple storylines going on. There's revolving around one wedding, and I kind of like movies and stories like that, where there's multiple storylines that revolve around one thing. Trains and Lovers by Alexander McCall Smith. Kind of similar to Seating Arrangements, this also deals with various storylines. The back of this says that four strangers pass the time by sharing tales of travel that have changed their lives. And as far as I know, it completely takes place on a train in England, and I kind of like that. Even in one enclosed space like on a train, there's still so many stories going on, which and it looks like it might be an easy read too, which I'll get to fairly soon. Okay, you'll notice I switched the camera angle because I don't think I was happy with the other one. Just in case if you see a new angle, it's because I wanted to change, but I didn't want to start all the way over from the beginning. So just so you're aware what's going on. The next book is Second Chance by Jane Green. If any of you ever seen the movie The Big Chill, that's what I think this might be like, because it's about four friends that are coming together to mourn the death of their friend, who says here in the description that their friend Tom was killed in a terrorist attack, and that I'm convinced that the beginning might involve September 11th, but I'm not exactly sure, which is what I'm gonna get to eventually. And it's just, again, like with the other two books, it's multiple storylines that take place in one place. And honestly, it's just a coincidence that I would happen to choose 3 books like that. It's completely randomized. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. Happily Ever After by Harriet Evans. I chose this because it's a book about literature, and it's fiction. These are all fictional books. And as far as I know, the main character wants to be what's described on the back of the book, a literary superstar. And I know they say not to judge books by their covers, but I always judge them by the back cover because I read out the premises. So I hope that doesn't. I hope that counts. Something like this, which I also think it spans a certain number of years too, like maybe 5-10 years, I think. So you kind of see the character grow up a little bit, but again, I'm not really sure. But I am excited to get to this one. A Week in Winter by, I can't say this name, but this is it. Maeve. I'm not Maeve. I'm gonna say Maeve Binchy. I don't know. But it's the only book that I have that takes place in Ireland, because the main character finds an old rustic inn on the Atlantic coast, and with the aid of some people she knows, she turns it into into an inn of her own. She redecorates it and things. And as the title says, this takes place in winter, probably. So probably being summer, it's probably the wrong time to read this, but I have 4 ahead of this already, so maybe by the time it will be close to winter, or late in autumn, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm curious to see what this is like. The Summer We Fell Apart by Robin Antelek. In a way, this is completely opposite from the previous book, because that takes place in winter, and this one takes place in summer. But I randomly chose this. It's a weird story how I did, but maybe I'll explain another time. But it reminded me of Maine, and This Is Where I Leave You, which I featured a few weeks ago in my book recommendation segment, which you can see in my channel if you want to see what I said about those books. Because this one is about 4 siblings coming together to mourn the death of their father, and they don't really seem to get along. And I expect this to be heartbreaking and depressing, and oddly enough, I'm up for a tearjerker like that. Guitar Notes by Mary Amato. This is a teen book, and it's about 2 musically talented high school students that challenge each other to write songs. And what's cool about it is that if you have the QRC scanner on your phone, you can scan your phone to the front of the book to listen to the songs that are written in here. And also in the back there's actual guitar notes, so if you want to try to play them yourself. As for me, I don't play guitar. I mean, I would love to. I love guitar and I love guitarists, but I wouldn't want to do the actual strumming because that looks too difficult for my fingers. But I do have piano training though, and I can't wait to get to this. It seems really interesting because there's so many song lyrics in here and original songs in this book. It's not like a book I've ever read before, so it seems really, really interesting. Francis and Bernard by Carleen Bauer. This is about 2 people. It's 2 people that write letters, basically. It starts out in 1957 and it spans almost an entire decade. And it's really interesting because it's nothing but letters. And it seems like a very easy read. It's only 193 pages and something like you can get to kind of quickly. And I was thinking of reading it before, but I decided to leave it in the randomized order it was chosen in. But when I do get to it, I think I'll like it because it's set up interesting. It's not like a novel; it's just letters, but it's meant to be fiction. Although I think it also may be inspired by Flannery O'Connor and Robert Lowell. And I'm not exactly who those people are, but this book is inspired by their lives, which is something I can look into, and when I get to this, it'll be very, very easy to read because it's so short. The Widow's Walk by Robert Barclay. In a way, this is like both mystery and romance because it's about a man who finds an old seaside house and decides to renovate it and meets a woman who says the house was hers for 170 years. And it's described that she's not really a ghost, but she's more than that, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but again, I'll get to it eventually, and so I'll find out. And I was also flipping through and saw the discussion questions, which revealed a major spoiler to how the book ended, which I won't get into that. But I figured before I get to this and during the time I read it, I'm probably going to forget about it and it'll all be new to me. So this seems like it might actually be interesting. One Evening in Paris by Nicholas Barrow. As you saw last week, I was going through a Parisian phase, which is exactly why I ordered this from Barnes & Noble online by searching in Paris and kept narrowing down the search until I got to novels. It's about a man that runs an old art house which shows indie movies, and he meets this mysterious woman who shows up every night, and he asks her on a date. And based on what the title says, I think it might actually take place in one evening, which I kind of find interesting. Again, it has that quaint feel to it because it takes place in this old art house and very vintage, and the back of the book, the last sentence of the premise says, "The most tender of love stories is just getting underway when something incredible happens," with an ellipse, which is something I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens and getting to this. So those were the books that I had yet to get to. And if any of you have read them, let me know down in the comments and tell me what you thought of them. And based off the themes and descriptions of these books, feel free to recommend others I might like, and I'll see what I can do about finding them. And again, I'm not exactly sure if this is what counted as a book haul, so just also let me know if it was or not, and if it wasn't, I'll see what I can do about a real book haul sometime in the future. So, I hope you subscribe, and I'll see you next week.